Well, hello, welcome to another Monday edition of Airfix and Chill. We're joined tonight by the normal panel guests on the panel, but also we have a special guest tonight. We have Mr. Johnathan Mock from the Interesting Modelling Company. Welcome aboard the Airfix and Chill train.
God, it just, you know what? It only feels like a few minutes ago we were doing this.
I know.
How time flies.
It really does. It's strange. I think sometimes StreamYards, when you click go live and you click that second box, you click it and you think it's all perfect, and then nothing happens. And we start talking, and then Rorex pops in and says you're not live, and we have to do it all over again. So, anyway, welcome, Mr. Mock. Thank you for joining us. It's an honor.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's been. I am a big fan, and many here in the panel are also fans of your Sunday service and your midweek review on your channel.
Well, don't worry, you can be cured of that. But
it's great. You and Drew and Spencer and Jen from Genesis Models.
And Mike Reeves.
Yeah, and who? I'm sorry.
And Mike Reeves.
Oh, Mike Reeves. Yeah, he's not from this country though, is he? He's from somewhere else, isn't he?
He is. I believe it's this newfound land called America.
America.
Yes.
But he has some very interesting thoughts on scale modeling. And also with Spencer, I was just saying, I've got a lot of time for Spencer because one of my first articles and YouTubers that I watched was him doing his, using Tamiya thin cements and everything else. And also his first article I read was Nimrod and how he built the Airfix. It was a phenomenal build. And it just seems that we seem to go around in these circles. You start hearing of people that you've read or seen back in the day, and now they're coming onto YouTube, and it's fantastic. So ultimately, I've got a ton of questions because I don't think a lot of people, some people might know, you are the Airfix Decal or Decal designer. Isn't that correct?
It is.
Yes.
I'm one of, but yeah. I've been doing it since 1997, would you believe?
So that was after the buyout from Hella, or was that during the Hella years?
No, that was. Let me have a think about this. God, they know I've suddenly lost where I. No, actually, it was prior to that. I started assisting Dick Ward prior to the Hella buyout. Prior to the Hornby buyout, and then when Hornby moved in and acquired the brand, then I started to kind of like pretty much go solo on the projects. But wow. Yeah, it was 1996, 97, and it was the first project I did was the 48th scale Lightning. Actually, no, hang about. Hold on, lads. I've got that wrong.
Okay.
No, because Hornby took over in 2006. So it was a decade with working with working for Humbrol, and then I started working for Hornby. But yeah, 1996, 97, and I was working under Dick Ward, the late great Dick Ward. Anybody who doesn't know who Dick Ward is, Dick Ward was the brains behind Model Decal, and he was just a lovely guy, and I miss him to bits. I really do. His knowledge and his expertise and his sense of humor, he was just marvelous to be around. He really was. But yeah, started back then. So
how does one become a decal designer? Did you just fall into it, or was it by chance? Have you got a degree in art and design?
I went to the Decal Designing Art College. No, I didn't. Do you know what? I actually went to art college in. I'm just looking at the cat here. I'm getting the cue off of him. 1985. Goodness me. So I went from school to art college.
Yeah.
And I actually originally wanted to get into the film industry. Unfortunately, I chose a period of British history when we suddenly didn't have a film industry. So I studied graphic design and whatever, and kind of did a couple of other jobs. But it was about 1993. I thought, I need to get a wiggle on here. And so I invested every single penny that I had in an Apple Macintosh. Now, got to realise, back in 1992, 93, they were prohibitively expensive. They were eye-wateringly expensive. But it was also an era where not everybody had a computer at home. You know, so I started kind of messing around with the Mac and getting used to the operating system and everything. Picked it up very, very quickly, and yeah, within about 2 years, I was doing freelance. I was subcontracting work through Dick Ward of Model Decal and for Humbrol. And as they say, the rest is history.
So basically, Dick, you're under his guise for a bit, and then you started doing your own projects, and then you got a phone call basically saying we want you to work at Hornby, and then to carry on doing what you're doing. And because every time a decal gets mentioned, I always hear Dale chuckle, "Oh, I'd have to speak to Mr. Mock about that." Do you know what I mean? So I think it's well known that well, in our circles, that you are the decal designer. Also, what software were you using back then on that Macintosh then? You know, for creating and designing the decals, because I don't suppose Photoshop was around back then.
It was. Photoshop was around. I was using Photoshop. I was using Freehand and Illustrator. The only thing that has changed in all that time is actually the OS. The OS gets better, and and you've had kind of upgrades to the OS and whatever. But actually, Freehand isn't made anymore, but it can still be made to work. But apart from that, it's still doing the same thing. It's good stuff.
Yeah,
better than a proper job.
Going into the actual so I presume you are then, say, I presume it's either the designers or Luke come up to you and say, "Hi, we're going to be releasing such and such. Here's some ideas that we've got. We've got some ideas for scheme. Go away," and then you create. Is that basically how it works, or do they give you an actual?
Thing most of the time, they just say "go away." No, that's how. That's how. Well, what usually happens is at the beginning, or just before the beginning of a kind of work cycle, they'll prepare a schedule and everything or whatever. And Luke he's much more thorough, and he will come up with a document with schemes and everything, and makes my life so much easier, because all I have to do is follow the instructions. Occasionally the uppity decal designer wants to change the plan, but other than that, no. He's actually whisper this because I don't want him to know this. He's actually made my life a lot easier, because he comes up with all the ideas for the schemes and things, and it's just like, great. All I got to do is sit down and draw artwork, and that's it. Wow. But I will say it's a. I mean, I enjoy working with. I was working with Simon. Was working with the late great Daryl Burge as well. But I enjoy a good working relationship with all the guys at Hornby, because they give me what what I need in terms of information or a start, and then by and large they just leave me to it. In fact, I was thinking about this the other day, that I thought I don't phone the office quite as often as I used to, but that's no bad thing because I just get on with the work.
I've got a lot of love for Luke. He's the rivet counter extraordinaire, I think they call him now. So I think that he was the missing, as I say, one of the missing keys to a successful Airfix will be his attention to detail. And the twice I've had the privilege, or 3 times I've had the privilege of being at an Airfix event, every designer have said, we had a problem, and Luke, I've designed this thing. Luke's come back and said, here's a list of problems, and that's what we want to see. And they're able to, like, for instance, on the Spitfire, they got the gas canisters wrong. Luckily, Luke spotted that before they put it into production, and he goes, we have to redesign these because they're not correct. And there's things like that. I think Airfix are going to be a force of greatness in the future, and I've often said I want Airfix to win because, in the sense of, I think people are going to realise that actually Airfix are going to be producing some of the most realistic models out there. They can only work with what they can work with, and you can speak to Sully because he works at a history museum. There's no complete aircraft out there. You know, they've all had bits taken from each other and trying to make it work. But but to get accuracy right, I think Airfix are pretty much on the board because of Luke. Going back to decals, when you're actually designing decals, do you actually like have a scale and then you create the decal at that scale of 172, or do you create it at world, what I call 1:1 scale, and then just shrink it down? Is that how you do your decals?
That's how I tend to do them. Is if I like to have dimensions to work to. So if I know that on a Spitfire the fuselage roundels are going to be 35 or 36 inches, the underwing roundels are 34 inches, and the upper roundels are 54 inches, that's fine. I can draw them full size on the Mac.
Really?
Then I just scale them, you know. So I know I've got a little table here of the ratios that I need to reduce things down by. But the beauty of doing it like that, and I actually had this a few years ago, is when somebody says, "Oh, that roundel's too big," you go, "Really? How big do you think it should be?" And they go, "Yeah, it should be 54 inches." And it's like, yeah, well, that's what it is, you know. And I mean, well, I'll be honest. Occasionally, I make an error, right? But by and large, you know, you don't. And one of the reasons you try and avoid it is that you are dealing with absolute dimensions and absolute known dimensions as well. So we've had it in the past where people have said, "Oh, that that code's the wrong size, or it's this or this, that, and the other," and I can kind of like whip out a photograph and I can go, "Are you sure about that?" You know, or they say, "Oh, it's what was it we had? It was a fin flash or something," and somebody said, "No, the fin flash is too small." I had an absolute side-on picture of this particular subject and a known dimension for, well, not only for the fin flash, but also for other elements of it. And I said, "Well, hang about, look, this is this, and this is this, and this is this. Are you sure that fin flash is too small?" Never heard a thing back from them.
Yeah.
So, you know, like I say, you make errors. We're all, you know, of course you make errors. You're human, you know.
Yeah.
Derp isn't. He's a cat. So everyone's woken about what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that lump there. But no, you make mistakes, but you try to minimize the mistakes you make. And I would say you can give me a decal sheet by an other company, and I can guarantee that once I start going through it, I'll come up with a list of about 20 or 30 things wrong with it. And that's not because they're being sloppy. It's because they just don't have either access to information, or they don't have the same aptitude to get things absolutely right. And what we're talking about here, we're talking about degrees of right. People can look at things and they think, well, that's close enough, and fair enough. If that's the margin they want to work to, fair enough. But I don't. Let's put it this way, I work to absolute fidelity as much as I can. So I am drawing things full size. Honestly, the number of times that I'm trying to work out, if I haven't got a known dimension, and I start off with, well, okay, this code letter is about 36 inches tall. Yeah. Then I start sizing it, and I'm thinking, no, that's not right. And then I go, well, perhaps it's 34 inches tall. And then you go, right, okay, that's fine, but now it isn't wide enough. So then you go back and you go, okay, well, is it 36 by 30? And sometimes you can be backwards and forwards trying to work out a relationship between a code letter and a roundel, and by and large you can be quite sure you've got the size of the roundel right, because you can use other elements as markers. And then when you get there, you suddenly go, right, okay, I thought that was like a 36 by 28 inch code letter. Turns out it's something like about 40 by 30, and the proportions are all out, the stroke widths are all out. But yeah, when you finish it, then you suddenly think, right, okay, logic is telling me that has been painted incorrectly, but it looks correct.
Yeah, I can see that. I got the new Tempest, well, not the new release of the Tempest this week. I did a review on it. Now, on these decals here, can you see them there for the undercarriage?
Yeah,
that blew me away. That must have been painful to do, because I suppose you would have had the scale model in front of you. Would you have measured up and done them that way, or is there another way of doing, this sort of? Because years ago you'll get like this, and then you'll end up cutting them, don't you? But here you've given us the option here of not having to do the cutting. You've done it all for us, and I just think that's so. That really got me. How you intrigued me on how you got to be able to do that. Is it another process altogether?
Nope. What it is I'm usually given the CAD model of the subject, and what I can then do is I can take the CAD drawings, take them into my program, and then I can kind of start overlaying and things like that. So it takes out a lot of the guesswork, because undercarriage doors tend to be quite flat and kind of like relative to the plane you're looking at, not plane as in aeroplane, but relative in the terms of the viewing plane. It's usually 90 degrees, so it's like, right, okay, we can work with that. And then it's just a case of you just have to kind of slowly and painstakingly work your way through it. I can tell you, there was I'm not going to say where it was, but there was a review of the Tempest, and somebody said something about I think the code letters, the underwing serial numbers are all, but they're the wrong size. They're the wrong size. And so my first thought is, oh great, I've boobed. So I went back and looked at the pictures, and went back and looked at my artwork, and there is one photograph of the actual aircraft, and you can see where the serial number overlaps onto the undercarriage doors. You can see the spatial relationship between the letters and how it fits on there. And then when you go back to the kit and you look at it and you start kind of moving things around and whatever, you end up with, well, it can only be this size. It can only be, I mean, what was it? I think they worked out at about I haven't got them in front of me. I think they worked out about 30 inches high.
Yeah.
And once you do them 30 inches high, they fit. It all makes sense. But like I say, you get somebody who says, no, they're too big. No, they're too small. And you're just thinking, well, based on what?
Yeah,
you know,
I can see that.
I don't sit there and just, again, this is one of these weird preconceptions people have. They think you've got just a library of artwork and you're just pulling it out.
Yeah.
And that's it. You know, you're not checking things, and it's like, well, no, I am. I'm honestly. I think I can say I rarely ever go to a library of numbers and don't end up adjusting those numbers to suit the artwork.
Yeah.
Because everything requires refinement or changes or all that, you know. I mean, I'd love to do a kind of like a live showing, you know, literally showing the process, because it's not kind of like cut and paste and, you know, plinky plonky. There is an incredible amount of toing and froing all the time, and I will also bring in people who I trust, who are confidants. I'll name a couple of them. There's Roy Sutherland. He's very, very good. And yeah, I will go to them and say, what do you reckon, Roy? Am I on the right track here? You know, and they give you feedback, and you are bouncing stuff around. And yeah, it's not a case of just kind of like, yeah, grab that out of the library, do that, that'll do. Next job, please. You know.
And also, yeah, well, and then, but once you've created those decals, that's going to be on 50,000 models. If you think, I mean, you know 50,000, but it's been going to be on a lot of releases, isn't it? So, you know, there's a lot of love and attention. Like when I built the first Tempest, I went for the decal for the invasion stripes, fitted perfectly, went down stunningly, and a lot of people in the video actually said in the comments that they were surprised I chose to try use the decals for that Tempest. But I was glad I did, because it was a joy to do. And you know, when I, you know, because it was all cut out for the undercarriage doors, it looked great. And other people were saying actually they went down extremely well, and they did, and they looked superb.
Thank you.
So I'm going to look forward to doing the post-war Tempest at some point, and you know, just to seeing it all cut up like that, it's brilliant. You know, you can't say any fairer than that. You know, there's a lot of love being put into these decals.
Well, thank you.
Going on to the stenciling, is that a tough one as well to get right? Because you know, who was it? Was it you, Hardy, that had problems with this with the stencils?
Ooh, which ones are those?
One of us in the group was saying about the stencils were just endless stencils. Was it for the lightning? Somebody did.
Somebody was talking about the 1 to 72nd scale, the little ones.
Yeah, was that you?
That wasn't me. No,
was that you? Was it?
That was me.
Yeah.
Once described as too many pointless stencils. But again, this is as a disciple of Dick Ward.
Yeah.
I'll come to that actually. Yeah, that's a good question by BSH63. Who says, what is the process like for creating the small stencils? Right, okay, I'll come to that in a second. But no, it was, I mean, the thing is, Dick Ward, going back to Model Decal 50 years ago, and when he started doing Model Decal, he started putting stencils on his sheets. And then when he started doing more work for Airfix in the 70s and 80s, you'll notice that the decal sheets become more complex, because that was Dick's influence. And yeah, it's let's put it this way: you don't have to use all the decals. If you look at a decal sheet and you think, oh, blimey, that's too much hard work, that is. You don't have to. But don't don't kind of decry modelers who like putting every single correct stencil on they possibly can to get a to get the look of the thing. So yeah, I can understand it can look quite intimidating to suddenly open a box and go, oh blimey, all those decals. But then I also like to think it's value for money.
Yeah, definitely. So
what's the process like for creating all the small stencils? Well, it's first of all, I try to get hold of, if I possibly can. Let's see if I've actually got one here on the Mac here. But I try and get hold of a. That's all right. My Mac's telling me that it's running out of power, and I'm not surprised because I've unplugged it. That's more like it. I try and get hold of what we call an AP drawing, aircraft production drawing.
Yeah.
There we go. Which usually, I'm seeing if I've just got one actually on the MacBook here. Which usually kind of gives you all the information you need, or gives you some of the information you need, and that will have stuff. I'm just having a look here. No, I better not show you those AP drawings because people go, "Oh, really? What's that for? I didn't realise you were doing that."
And I'll get a call from Dale. Take down that live stream now.
Yeah, exactly. No, so yeah, you've got your AP drawings or manual, and that'll give you all kinds of, it's the same stuff that they use to paint the actual aircraft, you see. And that'll give you the size of the stencils, and it'll give you by and large, it'll give you the colors of the stencils as well. Obviously, modern aircraft are incredibly more detailed when it comes to this information. But even on old aircraft, World War II aircraft, you can look at a marking, and you can go, right, I reckon that's about an inch, 2 inches. You size it up, and you go, yeah, bingo. You're right, So yeah, it is very much again, it's a refining process of looking at if you can, like I say, if you can get hold of documentation. Brilliant, but if not, it's photographs, and the photographs, you start picking your way through them to try and get the information that you're looking for. I mean, I can think of. That's a laugh. I can think of projects that we've done where actually we didn't have any stencil drawings. It was all based on looking at photographs and picking it out from that. And when I finally got hold of a stencil diagram for this particular subject, 95% of what we did was bang on.
Yeah,
because you're using a very thorough and meticulous kind of detective work to get all the sizes done and everything. And Celtic West says here, he says, I think stencils add a lot to a kit. They do, because they help bring they add more of a sense of scale to it. So if you've got something like a Phantom and it's covered in loads and loads of stenciling, trust me, Phantoms are covered in loads and loads of stenciling. But that suddenly pulls it together and makes it look more to scale. Whereas if you're building something that hardly has any stencil markings on it at all, it can look a bit bland, really, I think.
Crazy Locker says you've got great talent, full respect for the quality of work you do. So we have a fan of your stencils anyway.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it's great talent. It's the illusion of talent, but there we go. But yeah, what's he say? I like stencils. They make it look more realistic. Sometimes they can get a bit tedious, but it's worth it in the end. Well, that's a bit like me. I'm a bit tedious, but I'm worth it in the end. But yeah, it honestly, you think they can get a bit tedious. You should try building a model and thinking, oh, God, not more stencils.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness me, not more stencils. If I ever met the guy who oh, no, it's me.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, and I'll admit it. There are occasions where I'll look at something and I think, do you know what? I'm not going to use that.
Yeah.
Not worth it. But that's a personal decision. But I'd rather include everything and let the modeler decide for themselves what they want to include. So
yeah,
tricky one, but you try and be as comprehensive as possible, so that you're not dumbing it down. Let's put it that way.
Going on to the future of decals, as someone who I've seen recently, Edard have brought out decals that you can pull the film off after you've laid them onto the model, to these new, what I call 3D decals of like inside the cockpit. They now have. How do you see the future of decals in scale modeling? Seeing these new, I call them new. I know sometimes people say, "Oh, they've been around for a while," and they're not quite refined, just quite. A lot of people have moaned saying that it's really hard to get that film off. Do you see that anything more of a progression with decals to make them more like a sprayed-on finish sort of thing? Is there things that you've seen coming through?
That's a tricky one. I think the thing is we've had down the decades, we've had new processes and techniques for applying decals, and you think back to the current thing with the Edward decals. That's nothing different to what Main Track did 30 years ago. They had a decal system whereby you literally put the decal into position, then you wetted it on the back, and then you peeled it away, and there was voila, there was no decal film in theory. Unfortunately, they were an absolute bind to apply, and that kind of came along. Then it went away. Obviously, prior to that, you had Letraset, and Letraset was brilliant, but tricky to apply. Now you've got these new systems from Edward and whatnot. I've got to say, I am a massive fan of Edward's kits. Just not terribly keen on the process they're using at the moment, because I don't think it results in particularly strong looking decals in terms of printing. If they can nail that, more power to them. But I think the water slide decal is going to be around for a while longer yet. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And the 3D printed decals, do you know much about them, how they're manufactured and anything?
It's pretty much it's pretty much the same process as 3D printing, So they're a fantastic innovation. The one thing I will say is that I think the technology has a way to go before we start getting really kind of like strong printing on them. At the moment, it's still a bit fragile. It's brilliant, and some people are doing some very good stuff, but I think it's going to be a while before you're getting something that looks like a screen printed decal, but is actually kind of 3D printed. Having said that, I dare say, given the speed that technology moves at the moment, somebody's already done that. So,
Like, that's a cut. I'm almost at the end of my questions, so I've opened it up to the panel here if they've got any questions. But a couple of things. My Bible for scale model building has been this. I lost mine, so I went to replace it on eBay. £50. Okay.
Really?
Yeah, they were £50. I think there was someone there for £34 last time I looked, but somebody contacted me saying I bought one as well. Could this be re-released as a vintage classic?
You know what? Yeah, that's a good go on that. Do you know what? I would love to write a sequel to it and
Yes.
to update it as well. What happened was, again, another wibbly wobbly kind of like time travel thing.
Yeah.
I got a call from. Oh, that's a
Beautiful book.
Don't.
Oh.
I got a call from, it was Daryl of all people, who said, "Do you want to write a book?" And I said, "Yeah, go on then." And I said, "How long have I got?" And he went, "Oh, I'll come back to you on that." I thought, well, that doesn't sound good. And then when they came back to me, they said, "Well, you've got about 3 months." Which, bearing in mind that when I asked how long have I got, that was 3 months prior to that. So I could have had 6 months. Anyway, so I kind of went, okay. But no, I managed to, luckily some of the chapters were being written for me. I think it was Adam Cooper and whatnot. And I think Brian Cannell built some of the models. So luckily a lot of work, or some of the work rather, was being done, but I still had to bring it together in terms of the history and the photography, and and also, do you know what? I've nearly done it again. Drew Manton also did some model projects for the book. He's going to love this. He's going to go, "I can't believe you've forgotten me again." I didn't forget him. He produced some projects for the book, but for some reason, he wasn't properly credited for it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's going to love that, in as much as that I've yet again mentioned this, and then I've gone, Andrew Manton. So I'll buy him a breakfast. That'll keep him quiet. But no, Drew did the Spitfires for the book as well. But there were good things in that book, but there are things in that I look at it now and I think we can do that a bit better now. Plus, everything has moved on again.
I just realised I've got two. I've tried to find one. Yeah. So yeah, as I said, I do see that, because I as I say, these I've got the whole set of these as well.
Oh yeah,
complete set. These could do with a good refresh.
Yeah,
if Airfix could, the only one I haven't got is the that noise. There you go, all right. The only one I haven't got is the wargaming one, because it's so expensive. But every other one, but these could do with a refresh. So I'm going to suggest that we get you to redo these for us. That'd be a good little project.
Yeah, do that. Yeah, I'm up for that.
26, 27 volumes, I think they are. So, but I've been collecting these for years. I've just got our Ms. Modeler to buy some of the copies I had so she could start her own. But these are, this is what we used to use. This is what, and also I didn't realize that you actually have a chapter in James May's Toy Story book as well. I've even labeled it where you are, so I've been doing my research on you. And
building the Airfix Spitfire PR19.
That's the one. Yeah, there it is. And it's the job you've done on it was cracking. It's some lovely pictures in it. But yeah, they bolted you on the end, so you're at the end of the book, sort of thing. Like,
no, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. But yeah, have you got plans to write more books then, I guess?
Yeah, I'd love to write more books. I would absolutely love to write more books. Where I find the time to write more books, I don't know. But I'd love to write more books because I am an inveterate scribe And yeah, I love writing. I really do love writing. So yeah, any publishers out there who want a modeling book done, I can do it for you. You know,
yeah.
but no, I'd love to do an update to what could we call it? I suppose the either the Airfix book of advanced modeling, or it doesn't even have to be Airfix, but I'd like to do it as Airfix because it's, you know, keeps it kind of within the brand and everything. But no, I'd love to do another book. I really would. And I keep mentioning it to, I mentioned it to Daryl and I mentioned it to Dale, and they go, yeah, it's a great idea. And then yeah, you got to keep pushing these things.
They have got there's another one out, isn't there? There is an Airfix scale modeling book that's been released in the last 2 years, because I was given a copy, but it's not as refined as I thought. This one's really refined. There's a lot more meat on the bone. But if you
is that the one from Airfix Model World?
Yeah, I think it is. Is.
Yeah, it's
good.
Yeah. No, I'd love to do another one. Also, again, goodness me, it was 13 years ago I wrote that book.
Was it? I was going to say it's around 20. I think I got mine 2012, 2013, because I was at a model show originally and I got it there.
I was writing that in 2010, and then I got the first proof copy in 2011. Probably says on the inside that it's
looking now, actually, yeah.
2010, 2009.
Text Johnathan Mock 2010, and then this volume was first published in 2011.
Yeah, that's it.
By Conway apparently.
But the thing is there's blimey, there are so many new chapters you could write. There's so many new tools that you could include, but also technique and everything has shifted incredibly since then. So you could go back and redo it, and you've got new products and new techniques and things, so you could go back and redo it.
Yeah.
And you are repeating yourself, but you're also not repeating yourself, because a lot of what you're doing is completely brand new again. And this is the thing, is when we started writing it, or when I started kind of writing it, I just remember thinking, I need to go back to the book that was my Bible when I was starting out, which was How to Go Plastic Modeling by Chris Ellis. And
he wrote the foreword to that book.
Sorry?
He wrote the foreword to that book, didn't he? He wrote the foreword, Chris
Yes,
Ellis.
this is it.
Yeah.
And I literally Conway said, well, we would like the book broken down to these chapters. So it's blah, 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 blah. And I started going through the brief, and I kind of said to them, you do realize that what you're doing here is essentially, yeah, there we go. That's another good one. You do know that what you're actually asking me to do here is more or less just just really how to go plastic modeling. Everything they wanted me to do was mirroring how to go plastic modeling. So I thought, well, the only way I'm going to get away with this, the only way I'm going to write this is, I got in contact with Chris and I said, Chris, this is what we're doing. Would you like to write the foreword for it, given that I'm not borrowing his material, but we're borrowing the, what can I say? It's that spirit and that sense of adventure that was in that book. And he came back to me and he said, yeah, no problem.
Brilliant.
And so it felt for me, it was the passing of a torch, because I'll tell you my relationship with How to Go Plastic Modeling by Chris Ellis. I started secondary school back in 1978. I know I'm over 50 years, nearly 50 years ago. He doesn't look it. And I went into the library there, and the first book I saw in the hobbies section was How to Go Plastic Modeling by Chris Ellis. Oh my goodness me. Here was an entire book on the hobby. And I borrowed it on the first day of starting secondary school in the autumn of 1978. And I had to hand it back when I left in the summer of 1985. I've got my own copy now. In fact, I've got several editions. But that book, to me, and I still dip into it because so much of what Chris says is still, it's still true, and it still holds true. And I always say to people, this is a thing that always kind of like irks me a bit, is when people are building kits and they're going, oh, it doesn't fit, oh, it's terrible, oh, it's this, that, and the other. And I think to myself, are you test fitting anything? Are you actually doing any dry fitting? And I think what's happened in the last 20 years or so is because kits, by and large, have improved immeasurably, still not perfect, but they've improved immeasurably. You've had a generation of modelers come into the hobby who just think, well, it's all supposed to fit perfectly first time. And I think to myself, well, in theory, yeah, but actually I come from an era where there was like, you were always having to get out filler. You were always having to adjust things and whatever. And I think, this makes me sound like an old man now, but I think back then we just took it in our stride. It's like, well, it doesn't fit. Well, then you keep working on it until it fits. Whereas now it's kind of like, doesn't fit, right, next kit in the bin. Which I think is a shame.
I get that. This is why I created these stickers. I'll be giving them out to people. Don't blame the kit, always dry fit. And that's my motto. I think, it all stemmed from one night I was just reminiscing of the stuff I've built over the years. And I did this little meme. I've actually, because I took a picture of it and on my workbench, and it got picked up by quite a few. And this was a diagram. I'll get it bigger actually because it'd make it easier for people to see. For me, in 1984, it was build a model, paint, then decal. And then now in 2022, there's shading, filler, resin, photo etch, paint, primer, weathering, chipping, dioramas, masking, washes. And the build model bit is tiny, So the actual scale modeling has just gone up in the air. There's so much more involved now than there was. And I do get when people say if it doesn't fit. We have, and I believe, and I'll say it for everyone, we have been blessed with Tamiya's kits over the years and Bandai, but there's so much more involved, and there's more in the journey if you have to work at it than what I think Phil Flory calls a shake and bake model, if you know what I mean. I think we have been recently with some of the releases from Airfix. I can't say much about Revel, but Airfix, Tamiya, Hobby Boss. There's some of the kits are fitted better than ever, and I think sometimes we lose sight of that. When we have, gone to the days of getting some super glue and some baby powder or talcum powder to fill in holes and stuff. So. But yeah, I do get where you're from. I know you've got to go in a few minutes, so I'm looking through the chat. Anyone got a question for Mr. Mock about decals or his journey? I would like to also point out that I have been watching the Hornby Model World, very frustrated and upset, really, because I feel that there's so much that Hornby as a company do than just designing bloody trains. I'm going to ask you, were you asked to go on that show or did you decline? Because an episode of you showing us how you design the decal and all the gubbins that goes behind, working with Luke and the other designers, surely there would have been a good 10-minute slot there that they could have filled using you on the show.
Well, there's the thing. I was asked to go on.
Yeah.
And then we had this thing called the COVID-19 pandemic turned up, and it had to be, my involvement had to be pushed back because we all had to isolate, you see. And then when it kind of came back, I think the autumn of 2020 came along, and it was like, right, finally, now we can all look at, getting out of lockdown and doing this again. And then we all went into lockdown again. And the other kind of issue is I have a condition that I have to manage, which means I really can't afford to get sick. And it just got to the stage where I know the guys from the production company were going to come to me. If they said, if you can't come out to do this, we'll come to you. But again, I still wasn't entirely comfortable with having strangers in the house and everything. And that, they were very good. They said, no, we are COVID safe and this, that, and the other. But I just, I really, I really wish I could contribute to the show, and perhaps if they do another season, perhaps I can do something remotely. But having got COVID in the autumn of last year, having kind of outrun it for 2 years or more, and I am still suffering the after effects of that with a really chronic fatigue and all manner of, it's horrible, absolutely horrible. So I've gone from being somebody who goes out and walks 3-4 miles an evening. I can just about manage to stagger down the high street and back, and that's it. Hopefully, this long COVID won't last forever, and I'll get my fitness and I'll get my strength back. But it's absolutely has knocked me for six, and it's kiboshed so many of the physical activities that I do, like walking. I do a lot of walking, and I can't do as much of that as I used to. And it's not that I go out and I'm out of breath and I'm just like that. It's like I walked down to the shops this evening, and it's just, you feel as though you're dragging a weight behind you all the time. So long story short, I would like to do, I would like to be on the program and do something, but we'll have to work something out. Let's put it that way.
I've got a question from John Marley. If you can read that.
Yeah, I've seen people criticizing the dielectric panel's color underneath the Vulcan. Personally, I think they're the correct color for when the fiberglass was new. Is that what JM was trying to achieve? You just, it's one of those things. You've got to do it. You've got to put a dielectric panel in there. So you just go for, I'm looking at photographs and I'm going for a generic buff color. But you do get people who go, oh no, it should be this, it should be that, and whatever. And you can't have a decal sheet that's got about a dozen different colors of the same thing, different variations of the same thing. You just have to go for something that's, I hate to say close enough, because I don't like that kind of expression, but when it comes to generic things like dielectric panels, then you do go for something that's close enough. And also, they vary so much on real aircraft anyway, that by and large, you could go down a lineup of aircraft and you're looking at all the, say like Harriers, you're looking at all the dielectric panels on Harriers, and they can be anything from mustard color to tan to, an off cream or whatever. There is no one kind of color for them, really. That's very kind of you, John. He says, I'm an Airfix fanboy. Excellent, so am I. JM is doing great things for them, hopefully. And his local cake industry. Absolutely.
You're a jam on first, not a cream on first, aren't you, person?
Oh, God, there's only one way you do it, and it's jam on first, jam then cream. Anybody who doesn't know, we do kind of like support the local cake industry. Let's put it that way. So anyway, a question, right? On the new post-war Tempest, there is a question mark for the second scheme. Is this to symbolise that the correct symbol is unknown, or was the question mark correct? Oh, God, blimey, mate. I don't know. Let me just look that up a minute. Tempest, post-war.
I think the question mark's a lifting hook. It's where it's lifted, where the aircraft is for slinging purposes.
Possibly.
I can see the question mark on here. There is a question mark there, isn't there? Is that
but that's also, that question mark is also one of the lettering of squadron lettering. They had a question mark.
Oh, yeah, I got it. It's on the camouflage one, and it's actually on the cowl under the exhausts, and that was actually on the aircraft.
Right.
So that's not me being lazy and just like, I don't know. What is that? EJ865. Let's see if I can find a picture of it. EJ865.
The P40 at Hendon has got these the same. I've never understood it, but that has a question mark as rather than one of the letters, but I'm not sure what it means.
Yeah, there's also a Spitfire flying around with question mark on it.
Yeah, you do get it on some aircraft, but no. I'm just trying to see if we've got
and a Hurricane, I believe.
Yeah. Apparently this, I can't find a photograph of it at the moment, but apparently it did carry it's a question mark underneath the cowl. So it's intentional by all accounts. So
fair enough. From the panel, anyone here got any questions for Mr. Mock?
If you've been asked to do a particular scheme, but you haven't got you've only got black and white photos to work with it, have you ever had to do anything like that, and how do you figure out the right colours for it?
Yeah, it's not as tricky as people will think it is. I mean, if you're doing like a Spitfire, and you're looking at a photograph and whatever, first of all, one of the things that will give you a clue to the colours will be the roundels. So if it's got C type roundels on the fuselage and under the wings, then when it comes to the fuselage codes, by and large they're going to be sky, unless they are in black or something like that. So there are certain avenues of probability, I think is a good way of putting that, when we are faced with something whereby we honestly can't come up with an answer. That's when you get the infamous research notes on the instruction sheet, which is to say to people, look, we've looked into this, and we looked into this and we couldn't find a definitive answer. So this is our best guess. The thing is, and I'm not being snarky towards modelers being modelers, they kind of go, I've had this before actually, it's a case of, well, I'm trying to think how I can word this politely. No, what I don't have is I don't have endless amounts of time to pontificate over whether something is X or Y. I actually have to make a decision. Whereas guys on forums, who we abbreviate to goths, they can go, oh, this code letter is cream. Well, actually, no, I've changed my mind now. I think it's gold. Well, actually, no. I think it's light grey. No, I think it's now pale pink and whatever. Well, you carry on doing that. Unfortunately, I've got to make a decision, and I've got to make a decision, and it's got to go in a kit. And you can, I mean, we've had it in the past. People who go on about, oh yes, these were definitely this color, these were definitely this color, and then suddenly change their minds at the last minute, and then kind of go, oh, well, surely you realised it was this colour, you know, and I'm like, well, actually, mate, for 10 years you've been telling us it was this colour, and now you've changed your mind, and I'm not convinced you're right anyway. So, yeah, it's always a tricky thing.
Have you had a similar issue if you've done like nose art?
Sorry, say again.
If you've had if you had the same similar issues with like if you've had to do one that's got like a nose art or like a motif on it.
Yeah.
Or have you generally always had the colours for that one?
Oh yeah, I mean sometimes you've just got to,
yes.
You know, if it's nose art, if you've got a good image of it, then you've just got to go guessing. You know, I know people are probably recoiling in horror now, going guessing. But no, you just have to have a guess at it, and then hopefully you're correct. But there are, you know, you look at other photographs of similar schemes and similar kind of nose art and stuff like that, and in the end you go, right, well, I know that is, you know, that face is gonna be a pinky color of sorts. It's not going to be kind of like purple or green or anything like that. So you kind of like get it down to an average of probability, I think is a good way of putting that. And Crazy Bucket says, was there a set of decals you regretted after the production went out? Not really. Just trying to think. Not really. By and large, if you do goof, then you usually find out as and when somebody says, you do realise that should have been, you know, grey instead of green, and it's usually tiny little markings. You know, it's usually the incidental stuff. There probably are, but to be honest with you, they're so few and far between. And, you know, such is the pace of production that you are, if you do find it, you are angry and disappointed for, you know, a few days or a week. And in my case, I'm usually really angry for about 3 years. And then you just have to get on with the next job. You know, mistakes are going to happen. But we try and make sure, I'd say I try and make sure they are honest mistakes rather than, you know, lazy mistakes. And I could pick up any number of aftermarket sheets. I don't want to do this, but I could easily pick up any number of aftermarket sheets, and I could just go through them and go, right, you know, red pen them, because they are just really easily avoidable errors.
Yeah.
That probably makes me sound arrogant, but it's not. It is just you can instantly spot things and go, nope, that's not right. That's not right. That's definitely not right. There are. Yeah, I'm going to shut up on that. Actually,
do you actually work for anybody else, or is it purely Airfix you work?
No,
for?
I do projects for other people, and I do other kinds of work as well.
Okay.
But for the most part, I try to give Hornby the, how can we word this? I try to give them the courtesy of a certain amount of exclusivity. That makes sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, you have to make a living, don't you? Do you see what I mean? It's
yeah. And especially when you are doing work for other people and they go, oh, can you do these schemes? And you're just like, nope, because I've already done them for Airfix. And they go, yeah, but we want those schemes. And you're going, well, you're going to have to choose some other schemes. And I had this is going about 10, 12 years ago, company that I was doing some work for, and they got, I can understand it. They got a bit minty, saying, "Well, we aren't going to have our schemes dictated by another company." And I said, "Well, fine, but if I'm being asked to duplicate that work, then I can't do that because it's not fair to the." It's not fair to it's not fair to whoever got there first.
Exactly.
Yeah. Stuart Templeton says, "Is there any scheme you'd like to do?" Oh my goodness me, that's a very good question.
Please say Bearcat. Please say Bearcat.
Say what?
Please say Bearcat. Please say Bearcat.
Actually, I wouldn't mind because the French Bearcats. Oh la la.
Yeah.
Wouldn't mind doing a Bearcat, but there are no plans to do a Bearcat. So
Exactly.
that I'm aware of. Anyway, I'm going to get a rollicking for that. Now. But no, I'd like to do that. Any schemes I'd like to do? Oh my goodness me! How long is a piece of string?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. That's a tricky one because sometimes the schemes that you never thought you'd enjoy drawing actually end up being the most fun.
Brilliant.
And the ones that you thought, I'm looking forward to doing this, you get to the end of it and you think, I never want to see that airplane again. So
fair play. There's another one there for you, my friend.
How far along in a project do you start your work, and how much time do they give you roughly?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think, well, usually, by and large, actually, they usually set out the year's work in advance. This is where Luke does so much hard work. So he sends me a document, and that's got all the proposed schemes in it. So actually, by and large, I've got everything I need at the beginning of a year-long program. And then what you're doing is you are picking up information you need, and you're just kind of like, you're getting everything you need in advance. It's only when you start getting towards the end of a program, or if suddenly you've had to make a sea change in a given scheme, because it turns out that, for example, that actually that wasn't a mark, like 25, that was actually a mark 35, or whatever, that you then have to go, right, we're going to have to come up with another scheme. But by and large, no. You've usually got plenty of time. The only thing that tends to play havoc with it is things like COVID, which really thing is it. Scale Jelly Leiden.
Yes, what a name! Brilliant.
Like his picture, very good. He says, "What schemes are you most proud of?" Oh lordy. What schemes am I most proud of? Actually, one project that I was particularly, you don't like to say I was proud of this, because that kind of like, that's always setting yourself up for a fall, actually. But it was the chipmunk from year before last, because I love the chipmunk, and I can remember when I was told that Airfix were doing a chipmunk, I literally did a squeal of joy, and just the research for that, and I actually had to pull a lot of the research for the stencils and things from photographs and first-hand measurements. And what did we have? We had 1, 2, 3. There were 4 schemes in that kit, and that was 4 schemes with 4 different sets of stenciling. But there was something about how that all came together that I probably a combination of the work and also the fact that it was a chipmunk. So I think that was the perfect kind of meeting of everything. Everything went right on that one, and those are the projects you tend to remember because you look back on them and you think, yeah, I like that. I like that one.
Yeah.
The chipmunk. The chipmunks. I mean, a chimp's a beautiful aeroplane, but also, I knew that the kit would be a success.
Yeah.
But it was absolutely brilliant to see so many people just getting swept up with that kit.
Yeah.
They don't like it when you put a bird's nest in it, though.
They don't, do they?
Oh, blimey, that was ridiculous. That was.
Tell me about it. I did step in on one comment says you do realise it's just a model. The whole thing was because it's I haven't finished that one, but I've got 2 to do, and it's part of the same sort of project. So that one I did was like if one got left out for several years. And the next one I'm going to do is this is what it looks like when they restored it, because that's the kind of point of it. It's a restoration project.
Fantastic.
But that was because that was your chipmunk, wasn't it?
Yeah. The sticker the stick I got for that was hilarious. I absolutely loved it. I can't wait till actually publish it.
Well, you only got the stick. You only got the stick when you put it when it was in the Airfix workbench, wasn't it? Is that right?
It was mainly on the Facebook page, which is the most toxic social media platform I think in the world.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. It was just that was some of the. I mean, let's put it this way: it was about 95% people praising you for your modelling skills, and there was like 5% of just utter vitriol.
But had you noticed they all had the same common comment? They all allegedly flown one once, and apparently they just don't let them get like that. Which is, to be fair, it's true because they do look after them. But a lot of people says, "Did you actually read the actual?" article? Yeah, I read the article. They don't let them get like that. No, they don't.
I will take issue. I will take issue when people say, "Oh, yeah," and then they never. I'll come to Andy Preston's question in a minute. But when people say, "Oh, then they never flew like that," this is the classic quote. If that had been in my squadron. Somebody would have been up on a fizzer or something.
I actually had exact comment like that on the GR1 Tornado I did from the Gulf, and I did a bit of dusting in the cockpit. Like he says, "Oh, I wouldn't get like that." The thing that cracked me up, he was a Navy guy. I was like, "Well, you don't fly aircraft anyway half the time because the weather's usually too bad." The best bit is I had three guys. Commented saying that's bang on because they actually one was a ground crew and the other one were actually Tonka pilots, and this is you got that bang on. And admittedly was a little bit of artistic license, but I thought, well, they're not in proper hangars. Desert sand gets like in everywhere, so it's kind of a bit of common sense really. But yeah,
I got a similar comment on the Nimrod build I did. Somebody said, "Oh, they never ever got that dirty," and I said, "Well." You'd be surprised. You'd be
very surprised. Anyway. Nimrods get filthy.
Your rules.
Exactly. And I tell you what, I can't wait to get the Gannet because the guys in our group already know the version I'm doing, and I found the most scrapped bit of metal of a reference photo for it, and I can't wait because I know it's going to wind a shed load of people up.
It's got a seagull nest in it.
Exactly. Well, this is it. I'm going to try and find out where I can put a nest into it. I'm going to have to make it a bit of a trademark.
Right in the wing joint. The wing joint.
You go.
Andy Preston says, "Jonathan, do you build model kits?" I do. Believe it or not.
Here you go. And Mike and Penn just put this after.
Yeah, I knew somebody was going to say that. I knew. Yeah, Jonathan starts lots of kits. As for finishing them, well, actually, what have I got on the bench at the moment? Right, I've got the Mini Art Tempo E400, which I love, but I've just got to try and devote some time to finishing that off. I've got the Tamiya Comet, which is a stellar kit. Apart from the fact that a magazine editor purloined a couple of bits off of my model that I was building at Telford. And I'm waiting to get the replacements. and I've got I've only got a couple of projects on the go, but no, I build models. I love building them. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's just the day job is eating into my time, and then when I do want to do some modeling, I'm just so wiped out. It's far easier for me to come up to the library and sit in the library and read or do ghost stories or whatever. And but once my workshop warms up, because it's a south, like this room, it's south facing. So once the sun starts coming in and it starts warming up, I'll be back in there. And I know I've talking to Drew, we've been floating the idea of having some live modeling sessions on the Interesting Modeling Company. So we're thinking about doing that. So yeah, no, it's I build models. Yeah, I haven't got any. I'm just trying to see if I got any photographs on the MacBook of my models, but I haven't. But yeah, I build models.
Yeah. What was your very first model? I assume that you were a scale modeler before you started creating decals.
Yeah.
It was the other way around, wasn't it?
My first, you know what? I am going to be incredibly original and say it was an Airfix Spitfire. And it was an Airfix Johnny Johnson Mark 9 Spitfire.
Wow, there you go.
I built that.
Yeah, that one. And my father, this is going back 50 years ago now. My father built a marvelous collection of model aeroplanes for me in secret. And I always remember one night I came downstairs and I suddenly saw him desperately shoving something under the sofa. And I said, "Was that an Avro Lancaster?" "No, it's not. Go to bed." And no, he built me fantastic collection of model aeroplanes. Absolutely brilliant. And yeah, I mean, I can tell you, what did he build me? He built me a Frog Boston, an Airfix Lysander, an Airfix Lancaster, a Frog Lightning, P-38 Lightning, Airfix Spitfire, a Keelcraft Hurricane, would you believe, and an Airfix. Yeah, it's just like an absolute squadron of aircraft, and I got to say that was a formative experience. My mother also was always very supportive of my creative kind of talents. That sounds a bit pretentious. My creative leanings, and as a small boy, she used to take me to model shows and things. In fact, as a small boy, I went to the local model show in Wokingham in Berkshire. And it was held in the town hall, and I can still smell that place because it had this like big mahogany upstairs and everything, and blah blah blah. And it was only years later when I was at Dick Ward's that I mentioned to him, "Oh, I didn't realise you lived round the corner from Wokingham," because he lived in Farnborough. And he said, "Oh yes." And we suddenly started talking about the model show. And he said, "Oh yes, well, you know, that was my club that organised that." And I said, "Well, so you would have been there in 1973 and 74 and 75? "Oh yes," he says. "Oh yes." So the chances are I rubbed shoulders with Dick Ward before I knew who Dick Ward was. But I got to say, that's again, this is something we'll probably do on our show as well. Is I've still got the freebie magazine that I picked up from that IPMS show. It was an IPMS special. It was like a taster magazine. And it's got an article in there on American Aviate-A Harriers. It's got an article on French Corsairs, Fleet Air on Wildcats, Martlets rather, building a Schlussschlepper, a Messerschmitt Comet tractor, German Luftwaffe uniforms. I go on about it. Media, but I've still got that. I still read it, and believe it or not, I still use it as a research tool. So when I was doing the Aviate-A Harrier in 24th and 72nd scale, I went back to that because all Dick's notes about the color schemes still stand up. Celtic West says, do you design aircraft schemes only? No, I do occasionally do tanks. I do ships. I do occasionally do cars. And I have done spacecraft, both factual and fictional. So
I can't wait for Airfix to bring out the SpaceX rockets, and because I think that's one. I was saying this to Airfix on a few occasions that we are in one of the biggest space races since the 1960s, and there is nothing new when it comes to space. And and I was saying, you don't have to create a scale model of the SpaceX rocket or the Blue Origin. We were doing fantasy stuff. They were the best. I think when we did the Airfix live stream, you asked a question about some of the space stuff that you haven't got the tooling anymore, but they did like Space 1999 and stuff like that. It'd be good to get some of that back in. I think they're children who who aren't interested in Spitfires, who are interested in something a bit fantasy, and I think that's lacking. I think model I don't know how it really boils down to how they make their choices of what they're going to bring out. I know Spitfire sales, I understand that, but a bit of fantasy or what ifs. I think Miniart have done amazingly well with their what if range, and I like to see a brief done from either an Airfix designer or a Tamiya designer or somebody do something in space, whether it's a rocket or a satellite or something that we can build. And I would love to do something like that, because as I say, at the moment the only things that are coming out are the space shuttles, which the toolings are like nearly 40 years old now.
That's nearly 50 years old.
Yeah, 50 years old. Yeah, 50, I should say. Yeah. It'd be nice to bring out with something, wouldn't it? So
I think the problem you got with a lot of science fiction stuff is that these days the licenses are massively expensive, and I know people always go on about, I don't know why don't Airfix reissue the Eagle Transporter from Space 1999? Not their tooling, never was. It was an MPC kit. That and the Hawk were MPC kits that they polybagged in. And they had a little bit of work done on the to have an Airfix logo put on the mold, but no, that was never their tooling, and so ain't coming back as an Airfix kit, unfortunately. What the only science fiction subject, well, the only science fiction subjects that they that they do own the tooling for were the Angel Interceptor, the Star Cruiser, and the Star Cruiser Interceptor.
Oh, is that Captain Scarlet or something? Is it?
Yeah, the Angel Interceptor was from Captain Scarlet.
Right.
And also the Stratos for TSR2. Tell you a story. Just tell you a quick story about the Angel Interceptor. Is the originally they were going to do all new CGI box art by Adam Tooby, and I said, you know what? That Roy Cross artwork is so it's so part of that kit. I think you should bring it back with the Roy Cross artwork. And they kind of went, well, we'll bear that in mind, JM, which is what they always say to me. But no, it was thankfully Daryl went, yeah, do you know what? I think we will. And so, sorry, Adam, I'm afraid you missed out on a bit of an illustrating job there. But yeah, that Roy Cross artwork is absolutely iconic. And you almost can't see that kit ever coming back in any other guise, really. I mean, it would have been nice originally for Airfix to have done some more Captain Scarlet kits, or to have done some Thunderbird stuff or UFO or whatever. But the problem you've got there is that the licenses were actually snapped up quite eagerly by the Japanese companies.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like, you're slightly hamstrung.
I'd like to see Airfix release some more from, like, you know, I'm not against them releasing Academy tanks under the Airfix branding, as long as the plastic's good and I'm going to get a good experience from it. I think they should go down that route a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know, I think we're too toffee nosed sometimes when it comes to these sort of things. And as I said, Revel and Academy have been doing it for years anyway. You know, the BAE 146. As soon as I opened up that Revel box, I knew it was done by Tamiya and by Academy. I knew it was Academy plastic, and it was their bag that it was in. But it was, you know, but Revel had, you know, got them to build, and I don't see there's nothing wrong with that. I think people were just stuck up a bit about it. End of the day, there's good technology out in Japan. But as I said, you know, if you want to pay the money, you can build Bandai. But remember, Airfix is made to a price point, and I think people forget that. And I think the realization now, because I always wondered why there wasn't very much photo etch in the kit, they want to aim for that younger market, you know. And so, you know, sometimes decisions are made. I still can't get over they're still using that crap Humbro cement in the starter sets when they've got a decent poly in a needle. Do you know what I mean? But again, it's a price point thing. So, but yeah, it's 28 minutes past 9. Have you got to go, Jonathan? Are you still okay for a few more?
I'm going to have to go in a minute, but I can hang on for another 5 minutes if that's all right.
Minutes. Just looking through. Any on the panel got any questions for Mr. Mock? John, have you got anything, or Fenris, or James? You're being very quiet there.
I've been nervous.
No, this has been so fantastic. I mean, the amount of information that you've been giving us, and the history and the background, and the questions from the chat have been stellar. So yeah, no, nothing.
Nothing from you.
Been so awesome. Thank you.
No worries.
Right, thank you. Just have a look here. You've got somebody says here some new molded rocket kits. Well, that's a good one actually. Some new molded rocket kits, because one of the ones that I've tried to get to try and get interest in down the years is to do a 1/72nd scale, a new blimey, a new boss stock. You know,
I think we mentioned that before. Yeah.
To do it in 72nd scale, because the thing that as a kid I remember seeing the the Vostok rather. I remember seeing the box art for that, and in my childhood's mind, the box was about that big, and it was huge. And then when I actually saw when I actually saw a reissue of it back in the 90s, I was like, it's teeny little thing. And then when I seen an actual original box from the 1970s, I don't know how I thought this was like huge. It's not. It's like a little tiny Series 3 box.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'd love. I'd like to see some. I'd like not just from Airfix, from anybody, but I'd like to have a 72nd scale, kind of like I keep calling it a Vostok. It's got a proper
I know exactly what you
mean. I'd like to see one of them, because you can just build so many different variants and whatever. But I'd also like to see a 144th scale is a mainstream injection molded kit of the R1, the Russian, the N1, the Russian moon rocket.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness me! What an incredible design that was.
It was very impressive.
And there'd be no licensing issues with that either, would there? Well, after hearing, I remember, somebody mentioning about the KT, and it was not to be talked about because of what Gecko Models did. And then I didn't realize that there was a licensing on that one as well, even though it's an old kit, an old vehicle. there was a licensing thing about that.
For the film, yeah.
Yeah.
So you can't.
Yeah.
You've got to be very careful about. That's the problem with licensing. But
Yeah.
I'd like to see. I'd like an N1, but I certainly would like a Vostok and a Soyuz. In 72nd scale. I think that's a decent size. It's still only be about that big. It's not a massive model. I'm just trying to think. I'm just going to have a quick flick through the other
questions.
Yeah, see, X9 Techman. I think it's 9 Techman.
Yeah.
Good. He says, I wouldn't object to a Space 1999 Eagle transporter. I wouldn't object to one. I wouldn't object to a 72nd scale one to the same level of accuracy as their 2-foot model that they've done. Which I've got one of them, and yeah, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see something like some of the other stuff, like the Super Swift, and from some of the other episodes of Space 1999. So yeah, there's things like that. Anyway, Adam Boot says, "Have you ever created a unique original scheme from scratch?" Yes, I have, and I can't remember what it was. That shows you how unique and original it was. But yeah, we have done things before where we've. I think it's because it's like not charity, but it's stuff like that where we've had to come up with a scheme and whatever. So it's like, well, I'll just, I think it's like club specials. We've done stuff like that, and I've noticed Russell Taylor says Mobius Models has a super, if expensive, range of 2001: A Space Odyssey kits. The 144th Discovery is massive.
Yeah. It is big.
That's going to be massive. And I'm just seeing what else we've got here.
Larry Russo just said, if you use the license for a kit you produce, can you release it again, or do you need to relicense it?
No, you need to relicense.
Yeah, this is the trouble with Tamiya. Sorry, you say Tamiya, I say Tamiya, but it doesn't matter, does it? But they can't release a lot of the Formula One cars because of the tobacco advertising and the licensing of the sponsors of the cars, which I thought
and also the cars.
Yeah,
they can't. It's a tricky one there, and it's. I know I know some of them. They have. I'm just trying to think. You can't. It's like you can't. I'm gonna use a manufacturer, but you can't reissue a Lotus Formula One car because you no longer hold the license to produce Lotus, even though you've actually got tooling that you've created and own yourself. And that becomes a big issue. Even people like Tamiya have to go, we're not paying that much for a license.
I was, after watching the Scale Model World, then they brought out, they did the episode with Posha, and they had that Lotus, and I'm thinking, all that work they done into that Lotus, couldn't they release it as Corgi, then do it as Airfix, and Scale Electrics under that same guise? I'm just surprised they've not done an all-in-one where they've gone, here's, like, for instance, I fell in love with that Puma that they had on for Scale Electrics last week on Hornby Scale Model World, and I text Dale and I said, Core, the way that Scale Electrics kit looks, could you not do that for Corgi and then Airfix and bring it out? All three of you do a vehicle that's hit all three. Surely the licensing would be a problem then, because you would have hit all three brands with one vehicle. If you see what I mean.
Can't speak for the licensing, and I wouldn't want to because I'll get myself into trouble. But I get the feeling each of the brands has its own licensing agreement.
I see. Okay.
So if you're doing it as I may be speaking out of turn here, but if you're doing it as a Scale Electrics thing, it's not necessarily. I think you have to negotiate separate licenses for the different brands. I could be wrong.
I was actually about to ask that. I was gonna say that I would be very curious to.
Yeah, wouldn't the licensing be under Hornby Hobbies? Because remember, Hornby Hobbies is the umbrella of, and I do find the actual company quite strange. They are independent businesses under one ownership, aren't they? And I think more interaction between all of them would help the brand. I think.
It's not so much interaction. It is sometimes license holders.
Yeah.
Want to get as much bang for their buck as they can. So I don't know. I don't stray
that makes sense.
into that. And I probably, but it's not as straightforward as you'd think it is. So we got a hobby time here has said UFO interceptor skydiver. Yeah, I'm up for that. Do that. Shadowmobile. And Russell says it's a shame Airfix never had a Thunderbird's license for making kits. That, goodness me, that goes back to you go back through the Airfix magazines of the era, and there are letters from people saying, "Dear Airfix, you should do. There's model kits for this exciting new Jerry Anderson show called Thunderbirds."
Yeah.
But if Airfix in the 1960s couldn't pull it off, it's a shame. But I think that boat has sailed somewhat.
I think Dinky had the license, didn't they, for Thunderbird?
Yeah.
And show me now when Bachmann have the tooling now for like the Thunderbirds range, because they brought it back out as AIP, haven't they? As I've got one here from my friends at what's it called? Model. Oh, where's my Buffers Model Railway in Axminster? They got this in for me because I was desperate for one.
It's a Bedford dressed up as a Rolls Royce.
I've got the. Hey, did you know that the new Thunderbirds film, the car that Miss Penelope's got hasn't got it? Was it? Yeah, with it, Miss. Yeah, whatever. Wasn't a Rolls Royce. It was Ford. Yeah. It was a Ford. It wasn't even Rolls Royce. It had a Ford.
That was the Johnathan Frakes film.
Yes, that's right.
Johnathan Frakes, who was complaining back in 2002 that he was complaining. I can't remember what it was, but he was complaining back in 2002 that Jonathan Baird didn't understand Star Trek when he made Star Trek Nemesis. And then Johnathan Frakes went on to demonstrate he didn't understand Thunderbirds by making Thunderbirds. So it's like, it swings and roundabouts, mate. But got to say, off on a tangent here, I am loving this new series of Star Trek Picard. It's brilliant. Anyway, I'm just having a quick look at some of the other...
Talk about an actor who owns a role. That's, what's he called? He plays Picard. He owns it, doesn't he? Yeah, he owns it, and it's still there now. Just one last thing, when somebody was asking whether people still buy reference books for scale modelling, Spencer Pollard, who is on Interesting Okay, this is one of the finest Spitfire. If you've got either the Airfix 172 Mark 5C, the Airfix 148 Mark 5B, it's done the Tamiya 148s as well, Spitfires. This book is fantastic. I think you can buy a digital download now, but Spencer Pollard and Brett Green produced this. Some of the most amazing photography involved in this one. This is what we need. If you love your certain schemes and whatever, these books are a treasure trove. And so Mr. Mock create some of these with Spencer, or you want to leave Spencer do it by himself. But just saying, people do buy these books because I buy them, and they are a wealth of information and technique worth having on your workbench shelf. Okay.
Well, Spencer is just a ridiculously talented modeler.
So, he makes me cry.
Yeah, he really and also he's just able to bang stuff out with such ridiculous ease. God, yeah, I hate him. I'm just having a look. Somebody mentioned the Airfix Jetstream there, and I'm just having a look. I can't remember. I'm sure I did a gag on the instruction sheet for the. I'm sure I did a gag for the instruction sheet for the Airfix Jetstream. In fact, I can look it up now. And it was something to the effect of, we would like to thank General Henderson for his assistance in the preparation of this kit. No, it got removed. That's a shame. Because General Henderson, the first episode of UFO, that's a Jetstream lands and deposits Commander Ed Straker of the US Air Force, and he gets shot up by a UFO. But yeah, there was like that was going to be like a little Easter egg gag, but no, it didn't make it. Never mind. But yeah, I'd like to do some. I'd like to see some more fun, Jerry Anderson
like
stuff.
The Nat
like
from Hot Shots.
What?
The Nat from Hot Shots.
Yeah, that was kind of like bowled at me, and I went, right, okay, we'll do that. So we did the Nat as well. I was surprised they actually went with the full name, but never mind, they went with it. So there we go. So
Mr. Mock,
gentlemen, I'm afraid I am going to have to love you and leave you.
Thank you so much for spending an hour.
Okay.
It's awesome.
Yeah. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure, and we'll try and do this again.
Yeah.
So that we can have a bit more time. We can talk about some more other interesting things other than me. So I know people are going, he's talking about his favourite subject. No, trust me, I'm not.
I'd just like to say also, please go over to his channel. I've put it in the link. Somebody else wants to put a link in as well. It's in the description of the video. It's been a pleasure, Mr. Mock. Thank you so much for coming. As I said, I've been wanting to meet up with you. When the creators were first asked to go up to Airfix, I was hoping to meet you then, but apparently it didn't quite work out time wise.
It's me having to kind of like self isolate, really. I think last year I went to 2 or 3 model shows, and that was it. And I went to 2 or 3 model shows, and I'm sure I got COVID from one of them. But yeah.
And I hope you do get well soon. Long COVID isn't fun. I've got a friend up the road who still cannot smell or taste because of this long COVID. It's but she hasn't got the energy loss as you have, but she finds it frustrating that she can't smell or taste still, and it's been 5 months now since she had it. But again, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully, as I said, people go over to his channel, the midweek review, which is fantastic. The Sunday service is great. We have a Facebook page. It's all called the Interesting Modelling Company. And again, Johnathan, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure and an honour. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for not beating me up for my lunch money. So,
no worries.
Thank you.
See you later, guys.
God bless you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Be well.
Well, there you go, everyone. There's Mock. We've had some really good comments. Thank you for your time. Great chat, Johnathan. Zinzan, sub to the channel. Peckman, I'm amazed and happy that modelling reference books still exist. That makes me happy. Yes, they do. There you go. Most interesting. Brilliant, Johnathan. Nat's a brilliant kit. Thanks, JM. Great stuff. Brilliant talk. Thank you so much, Johnathan. Thank you so very much. We've got lots of thank yous there. And there you go. That was Mr. Mock. He contacted me on Twitter saying, if you'd like me to come on your show, come on. And because I've wanted to get him on for a while when I've not had the balls to message him. To be honest, but you know, when you're growing up, like I was saying, you know, this was my Bible. You know, this is one of those reference books you get. And when I lost it, guttingly, I must have found it again, because there's the other copy there. You can see it's well dirty and everything from when I've read it. And about £50 on eBay, so they hold their worth. I see Model Officers popped into the chat. If he wants to pop into this chat and talk to us, he's quite welcome to about his amazing 48-hour build that I unfortunately was unable to partake in.
Love to see how that ended up.
But I did spend a little bit of money last night. So
yes, you did.
I you know,
I just donated. That giving link was just fantastic. It was so easy just to go in, give some money, and it's good.
I'm going to try and find my Gmail, because I'm sure I sent him the link to jump on. So if Model Officer wants to pop in, he's quite welcome to pop in. I think I did. Let me just check my sent emails. I did send him I did send him an email to him. So if he wants to jump in the email, mate, is the link to the show. Some of the questions, Moz, why not try and get Spencer on the show? Well, now I've got a contact with Mr. Mock. Hopefully, I might be able to.
I can always text him. I actually know him.
You know him, do you?
Yeah.
Oh,
we actually displayed when we had our model room at work. We displayed a few of his bits of work, and absolutely stunning.
My favourite piece. I first came across him reading an article about the Nimrod from Airfix.
Yeah, we had that.
And there was a website, and he had this talk about. I'd have to find it again, but it's a brilliant. But what blew me away recently from Spencer was he had some old bits of Star Wars stuff. What's that? What's the plane? What's the spacecraft in Star Wars? I can't know what it's called now.
The one.
It's the TIE Fighter. Is it TIE Fighter?
I don't know. I haven't seen it myself, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think it was a TIE Fighter or something, and he had it all rusted out like a lump, like, you know.
TIE Fighter.
TIE Fighter. That's it. I'm sure it was
TIE Fighter.
And he basically created it with a little bit of rusty and these old bits left over, and he put it all into a diorama, and it looked fantastic. So Moz will be rearranging his shelves for a month with those paints come in. So it was the minimum is 108 paints, plus I've got $500 to use and buy other paints. But I spoke to James today about it, and we're going to hold off. I'm not pressuring him for it. We've got to find a way of getting it over here. So it's a lot of paint, but there are irons in the fire. So if when it does come, I'm gonna have to. I don't know, but I might just sell the racks with all the Tamiya on.
Crazy, yeah.
And then, but if I have said that if Outlaw paints are as good as they're claimed to be, and I work well with them, it's about me working with them, not about how good they are. If I work, because I'm Tamiya through with LP and everything, I will sell all my paint range and just stick solely to Outlaw. That's my my thoughts anyway in the future to go down that route. I've got a variety of paint. Yeah, it's 108 military colours plus whatever else I want basically for the voucher. But yeah, I did win the Outlaw auction, and I have spoken to Jason previously because as James said, my officer, that he lost his grandson, I think it was. And from the channel, I donated some money to the GoFundMe for their family. From the channel, I put some money in. So he's been in contact with me. We'll get some paint, so I'm going to try them out and see how they go. So nice. I can't see James, but I think one officer's gone. I think he's lost his voice because he was on it for like
got to be exhausted.
48, 72 hours because it went from Australia 12 hours, UK, America.
US.
Yeah,
because it was on last night, late afternoon here on the East Coast. So
yeah, I was there. So yeah, we will try and get others in. I have asked Dale if I could have the young lad who's designed the Feral Scout, Ferret Scout. I want him to come and have a chat with us as well. So, John Marley, I had the privilege of being one of the Australian presenters for the birthday bash. Fantastic, John.
very nice.
Very nice. It was cracking. I think they raised over
That was a
£5,000.
Yeah.
£5,000. So.
Oh, £5,000.
Yes, I think that's what it was up to when I last heard. But if he's on the chat, he can come in.
Yeah, the goal was £4,000, and it was I don't know, 1,800 pounds when I was kind of going into the system. So I'm really glad that they got up there, and man, if they got 20% more, that's just so fantastic.
Yeah.
John's saying 7,000 pounds.
7,000 pounds.
That's so awesome, man.
I'll just text him now, see if he wants to pop in. But yeah, bless him. It's brilliant. Models for Heroes is, I think that's a little jewel in our crown, really, in this country for charity wise.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic. I just wonder, do Models for Heroes have like branches in Australia and America now? Or is it just an English charity so far? I'd be interested to find out. Because Models for Heroes could be international, couldn't it? We all one being, aren't we? So how you get on what are you building there, Sonny? Anyway, what are you building tonight?
Yeah, it's the kinetic Harrier.
Oh, it looks terrible. Look at all that flash.
What do you want to flash? There's a bit on that.
You've sad in that for 2 days now.
It's seam lines. I hate doing them. I ain't gonna see in this light. I hate doing anything round.
Hopefully you're using the right drop tanks on it, Sally.
Yes, I've got the one at work to bloody. I've got about 300 photos of that bloody aircraft at work. I took some more today.
So where are you going to put the bird's nest?
I think if I can wedge it in there, No, this one's going to be. Well, I say it's going to be. It's not going to be. It's going to be. I'm copying it exactly as it stands now, which hasn't been touched since it left service.
Yeah. So what's on your workbench then, John? You got anything special there?
I was working earlier. I have a new surprise addition to the bench. I'm going to do an episodal build and a final build for plane, tank, and car. So that's going to be my new series build for. I'm not going to reveal it yet. I was working on it earlier, but yeah.
Is that a 5-string bass behind you there?
Yeah.
Wow, you play bass, do you?
I do.
Wow. Do you know what?
Total metalhead. I turned 12 in 1980, and metal just was everything, right? So I grew up in Southern California, so it was all wasp.
Whose is it? Whose is the 5-string? It looks like Ibanez by the.
It is an Ibanez.
Yes. I've got an Ibanez bass as well.
People don't realise the power of a bass guitar. The bass roots every song. It roots everything. As I said, I still look at Lemmy from Motorhead and how he bangs it with his. I just love all that. It's a bomber. It's a bomber. Oh, I just love it.
He was playing the guitar on a bass, so he was all his chords, his strumming, whatever. They're all an octave below a bass. Really, He's way down. He's on the D and G string, and he's, like the guy from. Oh man, what's his name? I should know his name. The guy from Joy Division. Same thing. That guy's even more on the extreme of playing. That guy plays a bass, but he's playing guitar on a bass. So Joy Division and New Order.
Where is Miss Model?
He's on the D and G string, way down on like the 10th, 11th, 12th fret. Yeah, So anyways,
yeah,
Miss Model is lurking.
she's lurking, is she?
Yeah.
I think she's had
Is
a
she
bit of a
coming
busy
on
day.
for what? Is she watching Airfix tonight? Because it's the Airfix episode tonight. So hopefully, be able to go and watch that with her. I'll set it up on here if she can't. We'll set it up on here to watch it.
That's our.
But yeah, it's been a cracking evening. I've been blown away. We've had about 90 in the chat. Mr. Mock has been fantastic. He's
Peter Hook. Yeah, thank you, Jared. Yeah, Peter Hook.
I'm trying to launch an Australian equivalent, the working title of Piece by Piece. I'm very recently medically discharged from Aussie Air Force bloke. I'm broken, but Model for Hills inspired me. Oh, fantastic. But yeah, it's been a cracking evening. You can just listen to Mr. Mock all the time, can't you? I bet he's got some really good stories as well, you know. But as I said, if you can buy his book, you know, go and buy it. We won't regret it. And I don't know whether this was the book he was on about, but this is Chris Ellis's book. This one, and I picked this up for £3. But you know, goes in about this back in the day, innit? You know, old school stuff. What does airbrush but it's all in black and white. But there's some really good bits there. So right. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Thank you for the panel for joining me tonight. I know you've basically been watching from behind, but I'm glad you've all enjoyed it with Mr. Mock. We will get him in again. And also, if there's anybody else who'd like to come and join us on Airfix and Chill, PM me and we'll get you in like Fenris did and, Rorex, and you've all enjoyed it. So thank you. I think we'll say goodnight now and we'll go off together and watch Airfix Model work together. So I don't get... we got... also, I just want to say thank you to Crazy Locker again for his super chats. They are brilliant. Thank you so much, my friend.
And Fenris became a new member.
Yeah, and Fenris became a member.
So.
Thank you. I will... I'm going to get Crazy Locker on here. I think he needs to come on.
Let's do that.
Get him on his workbench. He's got like a little workbench, you know, in his lorry, I think. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week. Take care. Oh, hang on, I've lost me. There it is. Take care all. See you soon. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.
See ya.